So I want to review the quadratic formula with you guys again. I'm going to abbreviate that as QF for anything I respond to. So I wanted to write that there so you guys would have that. When you're given an equation and you're asked to use the quadratic formula, your confusion on the homework quiz we took a couple weeks ago was forgetting to make it equal 0. It's different than completing the square because you're actually using a formula, and the only way this formula works is if you rearrange the equation so that you have a trinomial on the left side and it equals 0 on the right side. That has to happen up front. Okay. We now know that A is 2, B is 6, and C is -4. All right. We talked about the quadratic formula. A couple things I shared with you was to make sure that when you're writing it, to show the multiplication and to give B a -1. Instead of the opposite of B, to put -1 times B, because a lot of kids will mess that up if they don't. And then the discriminant, B squared minus 4AC, all divided by 2 times A. Now you heard me mention the discriminant because we did that first. We have got to do the discriminant first, which is just B squared minus 4AC. Nothing else. So we do the math for just that portion of the formula. That's going to help us determine if we can even solve the problem. As I do this problem, you're going to see me change to a different color because there were quite a few children who lost track of this subtraction sign when they were working with the discriminant, and it resulted in a wrong answer. Okay. 6 squared works out to be 36. And then we've got the minus sign. And then we've got, I'm not even going to work with the 4 yet. 2 times -4 is -8. And then we're going to keep our 36. And we're going to keep our green subtraction sign because 4 times -8 gives us -32. And there were a lot of kids who didn't do anything with that subtraction sign. And because they did that, they wound up with 36 minus 32 instead of 36 minus a -32, which resulted in a wrong discriminant, but they were still able to get 2 solutions. The problem is, this works out to be 36 plus positive 32 because it's subtracting a negative, which means your discriminant should be 68. That tells us that this polynomial, trinomial, quadratic, all of the above are accurate statements, is going to have 2 solutions. We do not know yet what they are. And this was a spot where some kids got confused is, oh, my discriminant is positive. It tells me I have 2 solutions. I am done. No, you are not. We still don't know what x is. We've only done the discriminant portion to figure out how many values of x we're supposed to have. This tells me that I have 2 because it was a positive 68. So I'm going to take that positive 68 and I'm going to bring it over here when I do my quadratic formula. I'm going to have -1 times b plus or minus the square root of, and I'm going to put a 68 there in a minute. Make my square root look a little bit nicer. That's where I'm going to put my 68. We discovered earlier that b was 6 and that a was 2. Now we got to just do some math and simplify this thing. We get x equals -6 plus or minus 38 has 2 times 34 is the square root of 4 times 17. And I rewrote that because I have to simplify that radical. All right, that radical has a perfect square in it because 68 has a factor of 4 that is a perfect square. So as I continue to work on this problem, I'm going to rewrite that. And I'm going to start right here. I'm going to keep my -6. I'm going to keep my denominator 4, plus or minus, and I'm going to keep my radical sign. But this is what's going to change. The square root of 4 is 2. Some of us forgot to square root the factor that we took out of the radical. All right? And then the 17 stays put. So now I have -6 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 17 over 4. pretty good answer. It's actually a very specific answer, but we're still not finished. In order to completely finish this problem, we have to simplify the fraction. Well, negative 6 and 4 and 2 and 4, those three factors, terms, parts, I'm not quite sure how you want to word those, guys, in your notes there to yourself. They all have a common factor of 2. So I'm going to reduce them by taking a 2 out, and that's going to leave me with negative 3 plus or minus a square root of 17 over 2 for a final answer. This is called radical form, and you can leave it in radical form, or you can figure out the square root of 17, which is going to be like 4.1, and you can do negative 3 plus 4.1 and then divide that by 2, and negative 3 minus 4.1 and then divide that by 2. And in that case, you'd be giving the decimal version of the answer instead of the radical version of the answer. Either one of them works, all right? But you've got to keep track of that subtraction sign up here when you're finding the discriminant. And you've got to make sure that before you get started, you make the equation equal 0. All right? I'll catch up with you guys in one of our hangouts later this week. Bye.